Hey fathers, you could possibly change the course of your custody case just with one or two little actions. Check this out. Hey, I'm James, Fathers Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got custody. I got full custody of my daughter when she was 7 months old without a lawyer. I was a warehouse worker who flunked out of college, had no legal experience, and all I knew was that I was going to go to war and do everything I could and everything within my power to fight for my daughter and just fight for equality. In the end, when she was 7 months old, I ended up having full custody after I fought off bogus attempts at restraining orders. Took me a couple months, but I got a temporary order. If I would have known what I know now, my 7-month custody battle probably would have lasted 2.5 months, to be honest with you. Got the mother found in contempt. She started doing discovery. I turned the discovery around on her. And then at some point, she just broke and surrendered. I played the game of the war of attrition that women usually play against men, and we surrender. 95% of court cases settle out of court. So whoever plays the war of attrition best usually is the one who wins. If you don't believe me, check the link below on YouTube. Search Flow page, Father's Rights, and I show you some of my winning court orders, including wins in the Court of Appeals over an attorney who had 35, 40 years experience when I went to the Court of Appeals and faced him. My baby's mom went through about 4 or 5 different attorneys and ended up getting nothing of it. But here's the thing about changing the course of your custody case. The vast majority of you are trusting the process and rolling with the system and doing whatever the system tells you to do. You're not getting on the offensive. The other side blindsided you. You know, there's so many guys. They first got blindsided with a protection order. And you got an attorney. Your attorney didn't even attempt to do a motion to quash. Look up Civil Rule 65 on injunctions that the mother has to give you notice because she went behind your back. The only exception to Civil Rule 65, and go read it for yourself. Don't just trust me. This isn't me saying this. This is me reading and re-quoting what's on the internet. Civil Rule 65, some states have a different rule for it, but the rules on injunctions or emergency or restraining order is a type of injunction. The rules on injunctions say that no injunction or emergency order will be put in place unless notice is given to the other side. Unless the other side proves with an affidavit or, strong evidence that there will be irreparable harm by giving the notice, or if you can't be heard before notice, like the father's out of town on a business trip. I need help right now. He's threatening to kill me. Or the mother is a flight risk. She's going to take off to her timeshare in Acapulco, and I'll never see the kids again. If I tell her I'm coming down here, those type of things are what I've seen a lot of times working at law firms and just dealing with this case. But usually it's women saying, oh, if I tell him I'm coming down here, he's going to kill me. But they also just hand those things out like water. If you Google David Letterman, New Mexico restraining order, there's a lady who got an emergency ex parte restraining order against David Letterman. Why? Because she said, David harassed me through my television. He wants me really bad. Or wants to marry me or something. Now, I'm sure David Letterman sent his goons down to New Mexico to get that done. David Letterman, the late night talk show host. lot of these judges and commissioners and magistrates, they just sign off on this stuff and rubber stamp it as soon as it's in front of them, don't even read it. I've been in ex parte and watched a family court commissioner, Carlos Valiatega in Seattle. One time I went in to get an order to show cause on contempt. I walk in there. Now you can pretty much do it online, but I walk in there and Valiatega is like, he has his head to the side and he's flirting with this court clerk. And then I walk up to him and he looks and sees that it's a contempt and he goes like, he starts signing it. I'm having an order to show cause for the mother to appear. He starts signing it and then he's talking to her as he's finishing his signature and slides it back to me. It was like, you know, I know it's like a fast food drive-through in ex parte, but he saw contempt. Oh, he's not even reading that stuff. So, that being said, they hand those stuff out like water, and you might have got blindsided like that. Or you just got hit with the divorce, and then you had a regular hearing in a couple weeks. The mother's withholding the kids from you. Or the mother's keeping the kids from you except for a few hours, and she says, bring the kids back. And you obey her like a good little mind slave. And you're told, oh, don't disrupt stuff. Don't rattle the cage. Don't disturb the queen bee. And if she's keeping the kids from you and there's no court order, why can't you keep the kids as long as you want? What crime is that? There is no crime. Except in 2 states, Michigan, you could do it for 24 or 48 hours according to Michigan law. In Georgia, it's assumed the mother automatically has custody until you go get a court order. So they're backwoods fascists down there. But outside of that, you know, what I'm giving you is a couple of examples, a lot of you getting railroaded and then you guys surrendering. And your baby's mom is abusive, mentally ill, psychotic, suicidal, mixing pills with alcohol, beats the kids, committed domestic violence against you. You didn't call the cops, but she did, and you copped a plea to her false report. And for some astonishing reason, you think in your mind, this is a great legal strategy to surrender and bow down and give in to the system and follow the system and trust the system that wants to destroy you. That's insane. When I was blindsided and my baby's mom withheld my daughter from me, I stopped giving her money and the war was on. That's it. I didn't want it to be like that. I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I didn't want it to get ugly, but that's the nature of the beast. And so somebody totally betrayed me, a total Judas. And I'm not going back to trusting Judas. I'm going to fight for my kid. And if she wants to work it out, then she'll come to me. See, you guys are placating to females. You guys are bowing down and worshiping and catering to them. And if a female tried to destroy your life with your kid or try to manipulate or use you and spit you out, you're placating to a narcissist, a social... Would the police placate to a serial killer, or would they try and take him down? Somebody who has hostages and is kidnapping people. If they got a clean shot, if a sniper has a clean shot at him, we'd say, oh, we don't want to take him out. That'll look bad. We don't do that anywhere in life. Only men in family court do this. So how can you turn your case around? I've seen it time and time again. Now, this is no guarantee, but why wouldn't you try something that's worked for other people? Because everything you're doing is failing. Let me give an example of a dad. His girlfriend trashed his apartment. I can't remember if he had an apartment or house. This is like 10 years ago. And I get astonished by this stuff. And I'm the one up here talking smack about all these things. I get astonished by these things. So this guy, she trashed his place, left him with their kid, and said, oh, you'll never see your kid again. He's like, can I please? No, I'm not going to let you see the kid again. I dare you, blah, 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 blah. He hooks up with me. We get together. He files a court case for full custody and gives her a discovery packet this thick. I give you guys a link to a free standardized set of interrogatories. That's the Seattle version. That probably anybody, you read the rules in your state and you could, limit if there's a page limit or a question number limit, you just tweak it. free resource available to people, but people aren't even looking at this stuff. So you really don't have an excuse for not getting on the offensive, because I have a bunch of free stuff that's available, and then you can consult with me and get precise, laser-like precision next steps on your case, and you won't do that. It's your fault. If you're getting screwed in your court case and you haven't got on the offensive and haven't done the things I'm about to tell you, it's your fault. You know, I just came across a Facebook page that says, I think it's Dads Matter 247. I'm going to do a short video on that. All I see, this guy has hundreds of thousands of followers, and all I see is whine, cry, piss, and moan about their situation. And my baby's mom won't let me see the kids. I'm going through that. And this guy who has this page won't give these guys any answers. Again, hundreds of thousands of followers. Dad Talk Today. All these groups are out here talking about all the nightmare stories and not doing a freaking thing about it. It's insane. Here I am helping guys win, and I'm one of the biggest enemies of the father's rights movement, because what do I do that they don't like? I say a guy has to grow some balls and get on the offensive. Or I say go for full custody. They say, oh no, don't do that. Don't stoop to their level. Kids need both parents. You don't need 50-50 with a narcissist, control freak, child abusing, suicidal maniac. That's men being sissies. That's what's insane. Anyway, so the dad who gave this thick of paperwork to a mother who said, you'll never see your kid again. As soon as she got served, she called him like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing this to me. What are you doing? Why can't we just work this out? Because he actually got on the offensive. He was playing Mr. Nice Guy up until that point. Women love it and drool and salivate over you being a little punk, a little sissy, a little pussy, and then they can manipulate you even more. Once you stand up to them, half of these women break just if you stand up with one thing. I had another guy who he had an open court case. All he did was send interrogatories, and then that started working their way into settling. Now, the first example I just gave you, they settled on 50-50 about a week later. It's getting on the offensive like a real man with balls. Look over my shoulder. That's my daughter when she was a baby. I just had a birthday yesterday. I just went out with her, or hung out with her. She drove, 30 minutes down to come see me, and all she did was just pop in and hang out because she just wanted to see me on my birthday. I didn't do anything too special. I had a couple of appointments, long appointments. I had a guy getting ready for trial back in the Midwest. Spent a few hours on the phone with him. That guy actually cares and wants to learn everything he can know, so he spent a couple of 3-hour appointments on the phone with me. If you don't care, then you won't do stuff like that. Now, that guy caught me late in the game, right before trial. He's got, less than a month left, or actually his trial next week, but he first got a hold of me with about a month left. There's guys I know. I had a guy who had 50-50 and was working with the mother, and then she went to court to try and get his visitation to be every other weekend, and said he wasn't involved and didn't do anything. Well, he came to court with pictures of him clipping his daughter's nails, bathing her in the sink when she's a little baby, coloring books, making her breakfast, all this other stuff. And then he got a court order for 50-50. It backfired on her. And then at trial, he got custody. When they went to trial, she was whining and crying and pleading with him in the court hallway before they went, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. See, women will talk smack up until the point it's time to go to war. Now, some of them will go to war. But why didn't you want to roll the dice? You might be part of that 75% or so where the women will settle if you just get on the offensive. And sometimes that might mean just taking one step, sending discovery. I've talked to guys who have been bombed with discovery, like they got 150 questions to answer in interrogatories. Or the mother did a deposition on him, and his own attorney is sitting there at a deposition, and you guys didn't seize the moment at that deposition to do a deposition back at the other person. You're already there. Why would you not do a deposition? It's insane, the stuff that we do. We are such simp, little sissy, little fragile, little sweet, tender, little tiptoeing through the tulip simps. Like, we won't even do exactly what they're doing when it comes to discovery, a simple, normal procedure. For those of you who don't know what discovery is, each side is allowed. When you have a custody battle, there's a mother, and there's a father. Each side has a chance to discover what the other side has. In criminal court, discovery is so routine that they automatically hand it over. A prosecutor will hand over the glove, the fingerprint analysis, the surveillance video. So you get to see the evidence they're going to use against you. It's not like the movies where they pull out something out of the back of their hat or pull out of their rear and say, surprise, exhibit A, I caught you in a lie. No, you get a chance to discover everything that's going to be used against you because you have a right to a fair hearing, and the fundamental fairness doctrine says you have a right to notice and to be heard. And I'm not giving, this ain't no deep legal advice. This is what's out there on the internet that you could have discovered on your own if you had some diligence to do this stuff, but you're so traumatized by your court case, you don't want to look up at anything legally. And I understand it, I've been there. But you know what I had to do in my case when I was all alone and had nobody helping me? Like, there was no James Christensen like me out there saying, hey, here's a bunch of, you can get consults with me, here's a bunch of free resources for you, here's a bunch of tips, here's a bunch of sample paperwork in my store that was successful. I got so many freaking resources out there. You have zero excuses for not winning something in your court case, or at least getting on the offensive. Zero. And the fact that I haven't gone viral, and I don't have millions of followers, and all these other pages do, and I'm not complaining because people want to commiserate and whine and cry about the justice system. So those things have their place, but that's all that's out there. Aside from me, there's nothing out there that's saying, here's some free information. Look at my winning court orders on my flow page. On my YouTube channel, we'll have a playlist that talks about James's resources and free stuff. And there's an explanation of how to go through my flow page and navigate it and get the things that you want to need. And people don't even look at this stuff. People don't even look at this stuff. See, the two biggest problems with fathers is we're cowards or we're lazy. And you see on pages like Fathers Matter 247, Dad Talk Today, 50-50 Dads, Fathers Are Important, all these pages that have hundreds of thousands of followers, and all they do is whine, cry, piss, and moan and show horror stories of guys losing. I just saw one on Fathers Matter 247. This guy wrote on the back of his car, I'm going to see my dad after 35 years. And all these alienated dads are whining and crying about how the mom did this, the mom did that. What did you do to get on the offensive and go to court and call her out for alienation? Probably nothing. Or you probably went to court and said, Your Honor, I'm really concerned about the mother's alienating devices toward me, and I really would appreciate if you'd let me not be a slave anymore and allow me some access to my children. Instead of getting in there and say, this is a psychotic form of child abuse. I give you guys some case law in New York on my flow page that says alienation is so bad for kids that the alienator is assumed to not be a fit custodian. Boom, some case law out there. Now, it doesn't apply in every state automatically, but the courts, you can tell the court to be influenced by it. Free stuff for you guys, and you're not even attempting to use it. It's insane. And you wonder why I get on here and call guys crybabies and whiners. And you got all these free, you don't have to even get a consult with me if you're diligent enough to peruse through all the free stuff I got and watch my videos. There's guys who have gotten custody without representing themselves, without even getting an appointment with me. There was a guy who did a podcast in New England, in England or Great Britain, and he tagged me, and he was doing an interview with a guy in Chicago who got full custody of his 2 kids. He said, yeah, I watch you and your podcast and stuff, and that one guy, what's his name, the How I Got Custody guy. And then I went to court, watched a couple hearings, and I studied my butt off. And then he got full custody of his kids. I never even heard of the guy. I just got tagged in the video. That was about 7 or 8 years ago when I first started doing Instagram. That was on Instagram. And that guy did a podcast with me. Now he's a bodybuilder, so he changed his father's rights stuff. And that's usually what happens. Like, you know, no criticism of that guy. That's just what he did. But a lot of these guys, these father's rights movement guys, get burnt out from doing this stuff, and then they disappear. They do something else. But here I am, 24 years after I won in court. 24 years after I won in court, and I'm still here helping people. And the average guy gets burnt out at doing stuff like this or advocating for men after a couple years. Now, Judge Anthony doesn't get burnt out. He charges $750 an hour. Family Court Corner, she's not going to get burnt out. She charges $250 an hour. If I charge that kind of stuff, I'd be filthy rich. But I'm sitting here trying to make it affordable for people, and people still get mad that I charge for my time at all. If I go into business and I want to be an entrepreneur or start a business, and I look at all these con artists and scams and hustlers, or I talk to somebody in the mafia about ethical business practices, and I go to jail or get nabbed, and then I come across somebody who does a seminar on entrepreneurs, and I'm like, why don't they just do it for free? I'd be an idiot. It's my fault that I did the first stupid choice of using the con or the crook. You used a con artist or a crook. See, the reason why I could talk to you like this is because when I first started out my court case, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have any help. I had Bob Carlos from Dads Against Discrimination, but he had been out of court and out of the fight for like 15 years or so. He gave me a little bit of information, and that was all I needed. I took it and ran with it, but it was a slow process because I was learning on my own. And I had attorneys who told me, you'll get every other weekend. I'm like, are you insane? I live 3 blocks from the mom. That doesn't make sense to me. But 99% of you will say, okay, whatever you say, master. Whatever you say, my Lord and Savior attorney who knows everything because you got a suit and tie and a bar degree. If it didn't fit into my conscience, or if it violated my conscience, I wasn't doing it. I wasn't listening to stupid, dumb numbnuts telling me, oh, just go for every other weekend or you don't have a chance. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have examples of guys winning in court and getting full custody. I was totally lost and in the dark. And you guys got an example of me actually doing it. And you got a bunch of free resources and shortcuts. And everything can be done online. You could practically do your custody battle in your bed. Not your bedroom, in your bed. With a laptop. And if you have a printer and a scanner, you can actually convert Word documents with you and have a digital signature and do all your paperwork paperless. And when I had to do my stuff, I had to go to Kinko's, pay $80, $100, print out copies, drive to downtown Seattle. If I was doing legal research, I went to University of Washington in Seattle, Washington Huskies, and I went to the law library and looked up stuff, or I went to the courthouse law library and looked up stuff. I had to drive and pay for parking and go there. Or if I was filing stuff at the courthouse, I would file a judge's copy in one room, a judge's mailing room, and then I'd file with the clerk, hard copies, and then I go deliver stuff on the other side. Mark B. Libas in Kirkland, Washington. He's retired now. That's the first attorney's ass I kicked all over the courthouse. Drive from Seattle to Kirkland, which was a 20-mile drive across a Lake Washington and a bridge. You guys can sit there and do stuff from your bed and email people documents now, or e-file and e-serve the other side. You have it 100 times easier. I had 1% of the free information that you're getting. You don't have any excuses. Get on the offensive and do discovery. Especially if you have an attorney, or even if you don't have an attorney, you can do your own deposition. I've had several guys who've done their own deposition and destroyed the mother. I actually had, here's another example. And discovery is a routine legal 101 basic tactic that everybody gets a chance to use in any type of court case. A lawsuit with a lawsuit with a doctor for malpractice, a landlord-tenant case, or any kind of court case. But in family law, you could do a deposition. Now, New York doesn't allow it. That's one place. They only allow it for finances. So that's totally screwed up. New Zealand is the only full-blown country that I know that doesn't allow depositions. And I've seen an article by a law professor in New Zealand saying we should allow depositions because your right to confront your accusers and ask questions of people. So that being said, I've had guys do depositions and destroy people's credibility. There was one time I prepped a dad. He had cancer, and all he wanted to do was see his kid every other weekend and maybe a midweek visit, if I remember. I had him at my office like 2010 or so. I prepped him to deal with, the mother was doing a deposition on him, and she had an attorney that's now a family law commissioner, and in the deposition she was asking him questions like, I just want to be every other weekend dad. I got cancer treatment and this and that. I just want to see my kid. If I pass away, I want to be able to see my kid and whatever. And then the way that he answered the questions that we prepped him for, I knew they were going to ask certain questions, and I say, I don't know exactly everything, but know these laws and know these rules. And he's spitting out these laws and these rules in RCW 269002, 187.3. I have a bond with the child. That's the greatest factor in the 187.3. Blah, 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 blah. There's no basis for 191 restrictions. You're discriminating against me because of cancer. The attorney turned to the mother in the deposition and said, what the hell is wrong with you? You want to fight this guy? And they settled after the deposition on what he wanted. And he had attorneys before that telling him you don't have a chance. If you're going to follow the lead of an attorney who's telling you stuff that violates your conscience, you don't love your kid because you care about not hurting that attorney's feelings, or you care about pleasing people more than you care about rescuing your kid. I've had guys who called me up and said, I told my attorney to get his ass in gear and do this and that and blah, 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 or I watched your videos and I was inspired, and they finally got up and did stuff. Or my attorney wouldn't do it, so I fired him. If you tell your attorney, here's some of the rules of professional conduct I think you're violating, it's time for you to start doing this for me, they're going to quit on you, or they're going to have a fire lit under them. Either way, they'll show their true colors. Why would you have somebody that is helping you lose? Why would you keep them on board? You can lose for free with two hands tied behind your back. I know a guy, I just talked to a guy this week, he spent $30,000 on an attorney. And all the attorney did was cop a plea to a false domestic violence, cop a plea or agree to a temporary order. He agreed to a restraining order without fighting it for a year and see how it goes. And then after that, then we probably can fight. A year later, the mother renewed it. He surrendered and gave everything up and gave into her and gave over all his rights without a fight. That's insane. And some of you dummies are that stupid, who don't care about your kid and have no balls and never stood up for yourself, and you want to please her. I don't want to get the judge mad. I don't want to get the mother mad. I don't want to get the guardian ad litem mad. I don't want to get this person mad. And guess what happens? You suffer and you're psychologically tortured because you can't see your kids, or your kids are brainwashed because you're such a kitty cat that you didn't stand up for yourself, and now the mother has total domination and control of your kids and brainwashes them. It doesn't end well. If somebody is a child molesting, rapist, pervert, serial killer, and they take your kid, and you want to sit there and negotiate and negotiate and negotiate, your kid might end up dead. If you watch the Mel Gibson movie Ransom, it's one of the coolest plots I've ever seen. I don't know if anybody has copied this plot before, but in Ransom, Mel Gibson was a millionaire. His kid got kidnapped, and they say $1 million reward. So he went on the news, and he had a bunch of cash on the desk, and he said, here's the cash for the reward for my kid being rescued. But here's the deal. I'm not giving in to your demands. $1 million to anybody out there who brings my kid back and brings the kidnapper to justice, dead or alive. He said something like that.
The whole world now knows my son, Sean Mullen, was kidnapped for ransom 3 days ago. This is a recent photograph of him. Sean, if you're watching, we love you. And this? Well, this is what waits for the man that took him. This is your ransom.
Wait, I want to see this.
$2 million in unmarked bills, just like you wanted. But this is as close as you'll ever get to it. You'll never see $1 of this money.